I rise today to speak on a motion that highlights an issue which all too often does not make the nightly news bulletin, the plight of the Nagorno-Karabakh, known in Armenian as Artsakh. 5 years ago, on the 27th of September 2020, Azerbaijan launched an unprovoked 44-day war against the self-determined territory of Artsakh. Using illegal weapons and funneling mercenaries into the conflict, Azerbaijan took the lives of 5,000 Armenians and occupied 70% of Artsakh. The ceasefire that followed never ended Azerbaijan's atrocities. And 2 years later, on the 12th of December 2022, Azerbaijan placed the entire civilian population under siege. No food, no medicine, no electricity, and nothing was able to enter Artsakh for 10 months, even in violation of orders from the International Court of Justice. And then on the 19th of September 23, the unimaginable happened. After starving the people of Artsakh into desperation, a 24-hour lightning military assault resulted in the complete ethnic cleansing of Artsakh within days. Earlier this year, Mr. President, both sides agreed to a ceasefire sponsored by the United States. And whilst there are no bullets being fired at this moment, the so-called peace simply rewards Azerbaijan for the crimes it committed against Indigenous Armenians. To this day, 23 Armenian hostages languish in the prison of Baku, including 7 Artsakh leaders, many who stood for the right for self-determination. Their fate is hidden from the world. And this is a regime that builds war theme parks to mock the death of Armenian soldiers, a regime that silences dissent at home and exports cruelty abroad. And if this is how they treat their own citizens, then imagine, Mr. President, the fate of Armenians under their rule. While hostages suffer in their cold, dark cells, over 100,000 Armenians remain stateless. They have the deeds to their homes, the keys to their front doors, but they cannot return. The right of return is not a request, Mr. President, it is a fundamental human right recognised by the International Court of Justice in November 2023. And yet, Azerbaijan tramples these rulings with impunity, while the international community too often looks away, as we have seen elsewhere in the world, where the suffering of civilians is explained away or worse, ignored. Today, Artsakh, where prayers no longer echo in churches, where Armenian songs are no longer sung in classrooms, where the Armenian language no longer fills the streets, Azerbaijan has turned its hatred against stone and spirit. Churches, monuments, cemeteries, the sacred sites that embody centuries of Armenian life are being systematically destroyed. And this is cultural genocide, Mr. President. History itself is being erased, and let us be honest, Armenians are not alone in this pain, and I think we can all reflect on what's happening. That was unexpected. In other parts of the world today, I've got one, where that pain is felt. And Mr. President, as someone of very proud Greek descent, I know our communities are bound together by the scars of history. Thank you. I don't know what's going on here. Armenians, Greeks, Assyrians, Cypriots share a legacy of displacement and of persecution and of cultural erasure. And we are not alone, but we also share resilience, dignity, and the determination to never let the truth be buried.
And what is most harrowing is that Azerbaijan's aggression has not ended with Artsakh. It has spilled over into Armenia itself, and in September of 23, Azerbaijan forces invaded Armenian territory, killing soldiers and mutilating women, grotesque acts that perpetrators proudly protested on social media. Inside Azerbaijan, ancient Armenian cities are being renamed, identity papers rewritten, and preparations laid for further erasure. Mr. President, there can be no lasting peace without justice. The right of return must be upheld. Armenian hostages must be released. The systemic destruction of Armenian culture and religious heritage must end, and our government must do more than speak platitudes of peace. And I know at this point there is a motion also in the other place, along similar lines to this one, being led by the Minister for Infrastructure, my fellow Greek Australian MP, the Honourable Tom Koutsandonis, and I thank him for his support of this motion, together with other members of this place who we will hear from shortly, including the Honourable Tammy Franks and the Honourable Jing Lee today. The systemic destruction, as I said, of Armenian culture and religious heritage must end. When we pass this motion, we send a message that South Australia does not stand idle in the face of injustice. The Armenian Australian community looks to us for recognition, solidarity and moral leadership. And again, I want to acknowledge and congratulate the Armenian National Committee of Australia, which has now established an Adelaide branch, and in particular Kurian, Anna and Eleanor, who are somewhere in our halls at the moment, listening to these motions as they're being read out in this place. And I recently did have the privilege of meeting with the ANCAU upon their first delegation to the South Australian Parliament in over a decade. I've known Eleanor for some time. I was also able to speak to her, and who leads the Adelaide branch alongside Michael, Sebastian, who travelled from the national office in Sydney to be here for that meeting. For the Armenian Australian community to have representation in this state is crucial, and their growing presence here reflects how deeply the Armenian story is woven into the fabric of South Australia. When the catastrophic Armenian genocide left survivors displaced, families broken and communities destroyed, South Australia raised more funds for Armenian survivors than New South Wales and Victoria combined as part of our nation's first major international humanitarian relief effort. And we here in this Parliament became the second state jurisdiction to recognise the rights to self-determination of the Republic of Artsakh in February 2021. Passing this motion, and indeed any other motion, whether it be on Artsakh or Palestine or anywhere else in the world that we might be thinking of today, Mr. President, doesn't undo the pain, and it certainly won't undo the pain of Artsakh, but it will say to the Armenian people here and abroad that their loss is not forgotten, that their rights are not negotiable, and that their future must be defended. It will say that South Australians know that silence in the face of genocide is complicity, and that our state chooses truth over denial, justice over impunity, and peace built on rights rather than on erasure. And that is why this motion matters, and that is why I am hopeful that it will pass this place with overwhelming and unanimous support. Zito.